Wagwan sports fans, welcome back to another very special episode. I am your host Jomar,
I'm Rush.
and this is This or That Sports TV, the place you guys come to get the best, most interesting, and everything sports topics, discussions, and debates on the internet.
Yes, people, before we get into today's video and interview, I know you guys want us to get into it. Don't forget to like the video. Leave a comment under this one and subscribe to This or That Sports TV. Please do so. Do one more thing for us though.
Share the video to at least 10 people, but ensure to get us 7 subscribers for this big interview. Because if you guys can manage to do that, do you know how many subscribers that'll get us by the end of the day?
There we go. So we're here and we're going to do an interview, people. I know you guys saw the title, you guys saw the thumbnail.
Yeah.
You know what's up, you know who we're talking to.
And you know what we're talking about.
Yeah, you know what we're talking about. So we're going to have him on right now. Give him a brief intro. Real quick.
This man is a businessman, you know, renowned in the world of business from long before the JFF. You know, obviously many would be excited in his new JFF appointment. Some would be skeptical considering of, you know, past history of football, so on and so forth. But this interview right here is just to clear up the matter, just to get to know Mr. Chung and to get to know what he's going to do with the JFF going forward.
All right. So without further ado, let's add him to the stream real quick and talk about it. Mr. Dennis Chung, greetings, sir.
Yeah, man, how you doing? I see. When you have on a shirt that says JC.
No, not at all. Not my shirt. My shirt.
No, but your shirt's
in blue.
But this look like JC.
Oh, JG.
Yeah, JG, Joe Graham.
Yeah, man.
Oh, it's JG.
Yeah, don't get it misconstrued.
But you see the color.
Okay, yeah. You almost went to a great school.
In fact, I went to a school, you know, on the same road, you know, Arden High School.
Yeah.
Some would say it's a greater school than JC.
And I did. I went to a great school. You know, I don't know what he's talking about. Kingston College.
Yeah. The both of you were misled.
What are you doing, sir? Is everything all right?
I'm good. Yeah, man, I'm good.
All right. First of all, before you even get into the JFF and all of that, tell us about, you know, Dennis Chung. What are you known for? You know, when somebody hear the name Dennis Chung, what comes to mind or what should come to mind?
Who is Dennis Chung?
Well, I'm an accountant. You know, I'm someone who I have been involved in media for a little while. I mean, I've been over 20 years now. I've been either writing in the paper, doing, you know, public presentations, commentary on radio, TV, still doing it, seemed like a very long time. So by profession, I'm an accountant. I've done over 20 years now. I've been involved in government service by sitting on public sector boards. I actually was the one who managed the Air Jamaica divestment. My reappointment under the Jamaica Labour Party administration, when I was appointed first by Portia Simpson Miller under the PNP to the NSWMA, but it was the first time I actually was a chairman of a subsidiary of JUTC when I was appointed by Mike Henry as transport minister and reappointed as chairman by Omar Davis. We had turned around that company from a loss of about $3 million a month to $1 million a month, and brought up the financial statements up to date. So it was the first time I'm being reappointed. I'm very big on corporate governance. And the most important thing to me is my name. Integrity is very important. I am someone who I think I'm pretty laid back, and I'm not big into, you know, a lot of people into profile and material things. Those things don't matter to me. Give me the capacity to buy a bicycle every 5 years, and I'm good. You know, I ride a lot of bicycle, and I love Jamaica College. You know, as I was talking about earlier, that has been my foundation. My my greatest passion is Jamaica.
Yeah.
You know, I believe in Jamaica and Jamaicans. I want to see the better for Jamaicans. Um, I believe that people should always do the right thing and be equitable in whatever you do. You know, I don't like people who abuse their positions of authority. Um, and that's basically me in a nutshell. I don't know much, apart from work. Spend time with my children, go to ride my bicycle. Every now and again, like every 6 months, I'll go somewhere. You know, I don't drink alcohol. I don't eat red meat. You know, um, hoping to live a little longer, even if 2 days longer than I was supposed to live. You
Yeah.
know,
All right.
so that's basically me.
All right. So speaking about people using their powers of authority
Yeah.
and abusing it. How did you become a leader per se? Because you're known for your leadership. I'd say you're a professional leader. So how did you put yourself in a position to be appointed into so many leadership positions? Where did that begin? From just an accountant to being a perpetual leader in every room that you step.
Um, you know, when I was president, and you have to get involved, right? So now I was president of the Institute of Chartered Accountants, which for me was one of the greatest accomplishments ever, because to get to the head of your profession, your chosen profession, is one of the greatest accomplishments you can have.
Mhm.
So now as president, uh, a young accountant said to me, how do you get to be in a leadership position? How do you get to distinguish yourself from everybody else? And I said to him, um, you know, if there are 5,000 chartered accountants out there and you do everything that every other chartered accountant does, you will be like every other chartered accountant. You have to pick something that is of value to the country, to organizations, and you have to choose to do that. And you have to choose to do it against the odds, right? So I put a lot of time initially, for example, in writing, you know. So when my friends used to go out and drink, I used to spend my time writing articles. That's how you get. Um, give me a minute. Let me just close the thing behind me here.
All
All
right.
right, no problem.
Just pause it. Yeah. Yeah. You realize I have dogs, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. Okay. Now, dogs, real quick. Let's spend too much time
I've
upon it.
I've I've, I've Doberman.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
Nice. Some big dogs.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. So when people I know used to go out and drink,
Yeah.
um, I used to just write my articles, you know, and I started very early. Um, but they chose to go and drink. I chose to write my article, and that's how I got people. People started to know me because I used to start writing on the economy. And when I started writing initially, it used to take me like 2 hours to write an article. Right now, it takes me like 15 minutes or 20 minutes to write it, because you know, an expert is not someone who is gifted, but someone who does put in more and more practice than everybody else.
Yeah.
Um, I also used to volunteer a lot for public service. So I started public service from in the 1990s. I was on the FinSoc Oversight Commission as a commissioner at the Betting, Gaming and Lotteries Commission. Every year since then, um, I have I have been on some government board. Um, I remember when I started working. Um, you know, when I used to go to all the public forums there were, and I used to just introduce myself to the politicians. I used to just walk up to them and introduce myself, and I got to know all of them because of that on both sides,
Mhm.
you know. And then, so when you establish yourself that way, you go through some adversities,
Yeah.
and it's never always a straight way going up, because people will try to corrupt you. People will say bad things about you, right? But if you know that you're doing the right thing, that is what matters. You go ahead and you continue doing what you know is the right thing, right? And build your integrity that way. And once you build it, it's going to be very difficult for anyone to tear it down. So my position that I'm in now was never that something that I chose to do. It was something that came, and leadership is not something that you take. It's something that people that you lead give you.
Yeah.
You know, they recognize that. So that is basically how I think that I got here. You know, and after many years, you know, here it is. It's not something that, you know, I know a lot of people nowadays is in no people, no generation. They want things right away. It don't work like that. Things take time to build. Things take time to develop.
All right, and before we get into where we are now in the JFF, speak to me about, when someone hires Mr. Dennis Chung, when the JFF hires Dennis Chung to be the Gen Sec, what are they getting? Final personal question: what are they getting from Dennis Chung?
Not even the JFF, when Grace Kennedy or
Whoever,
when the government
whoever.
and the JLP, when the PNP hired Dennis Chung
Yeah.
to come and the organization. So
They're going to get someone who says it as it is, someone who always does the right thing, right? And someone who is going to try his best to do what is supposed to be done, you know. Someone who is not going to think that they're better than anybody else, right? Because I think respect is very important. I mean, the person who serves the coffee plays a very important role in the office.
yeah.
You need to respect it. I don't have a problem with people disagreeing with me, because I think disagreement is good. That's how you learn. But I have a problem with disrespect. I think people should always be respectful to each other. Right. And if you disrespect me, that is when you're going to see the other side of me that a lot of people don't see.
Understood.
You know?
And now let's get into the JFF. How did you, get involved with the JFF? How did that first appointment? I know you were part of the finance committee first.
Yeah.
Gen
Let me
Six.
tell you how that happened. It's very interesting because Craig Butler, I went to school with him, and I actually was awarded the runner-up manager for CASAFA under 13 for the Phoenix side, because I used to manage that team with my son used to play, and that time Leon Bailey was played for them. He was about 9, so I've known Leon since that time. So when I was CEO of the PSOJ, Craig called me and said, "Boy, Dennis, I wanted to talk to Mike Ricketts, who I didn't know at the time, about getting Leon Bailey to be looked at in the side." And I said, Leon was at Leverkusen at the time. And I said, "Okay, Craig, I'll do that." And I called Mike, set up a meeting with both of them. And that's how I met Mike. And then Mike asked me to sit on the board and be finance committee chair. And that's how I got involved with JFF. And I said, all right, a lot of people were saying, "Boy, don't do it because of their reputation." Just like how they were telling me not to go to NSLMA because I'm going to damage my reputation. But if once you know that you cannot be corrupted, then it don't matter to you what people say, and you know that you will do the right thing. And the only way, or I should say, the way to get the greatest success is to correct something that's wrong. If you go into an organization, everything is okay, there's not much that you can do to add to it. But when you got something that's broken and you fix it, then you develop a much better reputation. It's riskier, but once you have the confidence in what you're doing, once you know that you can't be corrupted, right? Because as my first chairman on the betting game and elections commission said to me, Gordon Robinson, before we do anything wrong, we're going to eat bun and cheese for the rest of our lives. I don't mind eating bun and cheese as long as it's tasty cheese,
Yeah.
right? So I don't have a problem with that. So that's why I got involved with JFF.
So when you got this call or this email, or I don't know if you have an agent or a manager, I'm not sure how it is in the upper echelon of CEO ship, Whenever they reached out to you to to fill this position? Was there any apprehension? Were you doubtful any at all, or did you take it with open arms after Dalton
Yeah.
went to
No, Mike will tell you, Mike Ricketts, that he has been asking me for a while, right?
Mm.
Because Dalton had left the JFF. And it was never something in my consideration. Mike has been saying to me for weeks, Dennis, why don't do this? Why don't do this? I said, Mike, I really don't want to do this, right? Because I was leaving SPL, and my thing was that I was going to spend a few months and just ride bicycle around the country, right? And he said, come do it, come do it. And I said, you know what? All right, because I spoke to my cousin when Mike has been asking me, and I spoke to my cousin, Hugh Menzies, and Hugh said, go ahead and do it. I was in New York. I made up my mind when I was at the game with Argentina, Jamaica. Hugh was there. He had a contract. He was finishing up with a team, a football team that was owned by Kevin Durant. He was coaching them in New York. I was stayed with him one night, and he said, go and do it, man. And I said, all right, Mike, because Mike Ricketts, I think, is a good guy at heart, and he wanted the best for JFF. So I said, all right, fine. And I know where he wanted to go, right? And that's how it happened. Nothing more than that.
Mhm.
And the last question on your appointment and pre-appointment, what was your perception of the JFF like right before your appointment, and the whole debacle with the division of players and the
Stride.
lack of management and players not being able to fly in all age groups, in all genders? Like, what was your perception of the JFF? Though you might not have been interested in taking up the job, obviously being a Jamaica fan, how did this affect you?
Yeah.
Because we know it affected us.
My person, remember, I was on the board for 2 years, so I had a different view from most people, right, around the world. And me not wanting to do it at the time had nothing to do with the fact that I thought that it was not possible to fix it. It's just that it just never occurred to me, you know. But I always thought that the JFF has potential. I mean, when you think about it, football and even the JFF, in terms of the amount of business and money that passes through, is bigger than many companies on the stock exchange, particularly the junior stock exchange.
Yeah.
It's a big business, and I was in Qatar at the FIFA summit, and I can tell you, right, that is huge, right? When you talk about FIFA, FIFA booking 3 hotels, right? When you talk about bringing 3 persons from every member association worldwide, right? And myself and one of the VPs who went, stayed at the Waldorf Astoria, which is a great hotel, right? But then the hotel that they had the president staying at the Fairmont, the Waldorf looked like a ghetto. So that was the power of the thing. And when you heard about what they talk about what they want to do with talent development, but JFF has a great potential. When you think about it, we have qualified the first English-speaking Caribbean girl and men's team to the World Cup, right? The brand, the reggae boys and the reggae girls, is huge. I mean, when I went away and I said to someone, boy, I have a reggae boy shirt for you. Everyone was like, can I get one? Right? It's a huge brand. The girls is going to their second consecutive World Cup.
Yeah.
Right? We have probably the best striker in the world in the girls' team. Right? So there's a lot of potential. The problem with the JFF was that it was not being run properly.
Yeah.
So it was like a diamond in the rough.
And
So
give us some insight into that. Why wasn't it being run properly?
I think it was just management and structures. And that's all I think it was, just management and structures. Because if you look at, I've been there for a month now, and working with Mike, we've done a lot of things in a month.
Yeah.
That is
Sure.
that is not an organization that something was drastically wrong with.
Yeah.
That's just an organization that needed some brushing off.
Yeah.
You know, when I went to NSW was much more difficult than JFF. I can tell you that. I mean, when I went to my first board meeting and the accountant said to me, um, yeah, at NSW, he said, I have $200 million in inventories. I looked at the balance sheet. I'm an accountant. And I said, well, that's good. We can sell it and make some money to fund the thing. He said, no, the 200 million don't really exist. I said, what do you mean? But it's on the balance sheet. He said, well, it's coming from, the balance is coming from 9 years ago.
Oh my God.
Right? At that point, I had to say, hey guys, I'm going to run this thing on with bank recons. You know. For 6 months, I run NSWMA without any financial statements, just on bank statements. Right? JFF actually has their audits completed every year. Right? So a lot of the things that you hear that there's corruption is not so. It's just like in the public sector. A lot of the times the problem is not corruption, it's inefficiency. But then from people from the outside will see it as corruption. Corruption is something that's very difficult to prove, you know,
Yeah.
right? Right? So it's really inefficiency, which is why we were able to, you know, working with the president at JFF, fix a lot of things in such a short time. At NSWMA, it took me 3 years to get the audited accounts up to date. At JFF, they're up to date.
Yeah, and you speak about auditing. You know, that segues perfectly into the next question. There's been this long perception that the Jamaica Football Federation is as dry as the Sahara Desert as it relates to money and capital. You know, however, the implementation of new policies, my apologies, and you know, seeing new innovations being made and seeing new steps being taken since your appointment. Is it that you magically generated money for the JFF?
It's a running team.
No,
No money.
no. It's just a matter of how you manage it. So one of the things I am currently in the process now of finalizing my budget and strategic goals for next year. And one of the things I said to them, guys, listen, anything with budget now, you know, and there's a deficit, you know, that we have to close, but we identify what it is and then we look at how we're going to close it. I said, anything that we budget now, because we're going to present that budget to the board, we're not spending anything outside of the budget, right? So that's how we're going to operate, and that's how you have to operate. Any business that you operate otherwise with, you're going to have a problem, right? Not just the JFF. So it's just the approach that we're taking, right? We get a lot of funding support from FIFA. We have sponsors who are on board, right? And we expect to deepen those relationships, right? But it's just a matter of managing it. I mean, it's like your personal life, you know. You know, I have an uncle who he did very well in business, and he all he did was leave high school, you know, and he retired at 50, right? And he said to me, and he started out driving a minibus for somebody. He bought it, he saved and bought his minibus, and he drove that, and then he sold the minibus and bought a truck, and he sold his truck and bought a business, and his friend also sold his truck and his friend bought a house in Beverly Hills. Well, he now has the capacity, or had the capacity when he retired, to buy many houses in Beverly Hills. And his friend had the one house in Beverly Hills, right? It's how you manage it, right? He said to me when I was about 16, because I used to go to his gas station and work every summer. He said, Dennis, it's not how much money you earn that's important, it's how much you save, right? So you see people that make a lot of money and yet still they're struggling month to month because they take on things they can't afford. And that's the approach that we need to take in business. That's the approach we need to take with JFF, right? We're not going to spend what we don't have, right?
I know that you're on a budget. Do you think that will affect, you know, ultimately the most important thing, which is the football? Will we see the boys not stay at hotels that are up to standard? Will we see, you know, them not having the best physios? Or will that affect the football in the end because we're on a budget?
No, in fact, I think that will improve that, because what it means is that you'll cut out the waste from elsewhere, right? And focus the money on where it needs to go, right? We need to focus the money on the players, right? there will be a little bump in the road initially, right? But we have to make the sacrifice to get to the point where our players are comfortable, right? So we're not spending the money on things that don't matter. For example, the president took the decision when we went to Cameroon that we're not going to send any of the directors apart from the HOD. We didn't go ourselves because it was an international friendly. When the girls go to Australia, nobody's going apart from the staff and the girls and the HOD. Right? That money that we save is going to go to the girls, right? Or go to the boys, right? There are some matches we'll have to go to, right? One of the things I can tell you also is that my president and I and myself, we had the opportunity to stay in Qatar and watch the World Cup for the whole time. It wouldn't have cost the JFF 1 cent if we had stayed. But we took the decision not to stay because we didn't want the perception to be out there that we were frolicking. Right, but it wouldn't have cost anything. So we choose carefully what we do now. We look at how we spend money. Even internally, I'm having a discussion in terms of the internal operations today, right? And looking at a way. I mean, we had situations in the past where the center that we have up at UWI, we were maintaining it, but letting people use it free. That cut out now. People are going to pay the commercial rates for it. I can tell you that. Right? Those are some of the things that we need to look at. So it's not that we don't have the resources. I mean, the jerseys, we were giving them away. We started selling them. In fact, a youngster from Sweden sent me a letter with $120 in there for a jersey. Right? So we sent him two, right? We're setting up an e-commerce site to sell our things. Those are the things that we need to do. So it's going to take a little while, like a few months. And one of the reasons that's pressuring us to do all of this too is because when we were at the summit in the FIFA summit in Miami in October, FIFA had me and the president sign something to say in 6 months' time we'll be the model organization in the Caribbean. So our necks are on the block.
Makes sense.
And based on all the things that you've been saying, it seems as though you guys are on the right trajectory. So we spoken about the business side of it. Let's move to some football now, considering that you are at the helm of a football organization. Let's talk about selection. Let's talk about player management within the Reggae Boys. Kick it off.
All right. So a big team out there, as you say, is the corruption. But I like to specify. I like to know what we're talking about rather than just saying corruption. And I'm going to call names, and it is your responsibility, to deny these claims or rubbish these. Right? So a lot of people have an issue with Mr. Rudolph Speid being the head of the technical committee, right? And that is because he's also the head of one of the clubs in the Jamaican Premier League, being Cavaliers. Now, they think there is at least an appearance of conflict of interest, and it could be an actuality, conflict of interest, or whatever. I need you to respond to that. Is there a conflict of interest, or are you even concerned with the appearance that there could be conflict of interest?
There is a potential for conflict of interest, right? And certainly the perception, I can understand where that perception is, right? But what I can tell you is that he does not interfere whatsoever in any decision regarding the coach. In fact, if I were to call Rudolph and say, Rudolph, what do you think about so and so? He will say to me, which he has said to me maybe 2 weeks ago, Dennis, I'm not commenting on that because I don't want to give the impression, right, that I have anything to do with it. So even when the situation arose with Leon recently, right, all we did is refer the situation to the team manager and the coach. Nobody interfered in that. In fact, I said to the team manager, give me the decision on it, right? I don't even, from my perspective, I don't even communicate with the players directly. I go through the team managers, right? Because if I were to interfere directly and the team doesn't do well, who do I hold accountable? No, if the team don't do well, it's the accountability of the coach and the team manager, and they are the ones who their heads will be on the block.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Right? So we don't interfere. And Rudolph, I can tell you, he does not interfere. The only thing he will do is sit on the committee. And remember, he's one person on a committee, and he will um, look at the committee, do some search for a coach, carry it to the board, and the board. I mean, you could say also there's a conflict with the board members if they make the decision because all of them are parish presidents, right? But he just makes the recommendation. The board decides yes or no, and then we'll hire the coach, and that's it. Everything that happens after that, right? In fact, there was something going around, and how it started to. One of the former coaches actually, when we didn't do well in the World Cup qualifying, the impression was given that the board had something to do with the selection of the players. I can tell you that the board had nothing to do with it. In fact, when I was sitting in the Royal Box at the stadium with Mike, and we looked on, we were surprised to see certain changes. We didn't know what was happening. If the coaching staff come to us and say we need X amount, right, we give them X amount, and that's it, right? In fact, when I remember once they came to me when I was finance committee chair and said, "Boy, the coach said he needs this," and I said, "We can't afford it." Them said the coach said we need it, so let's go and find it.
Right.
And that's the extent of the board in how we manage with players.
All right. So personally, let's sidetrack for a minute. Personally, I don't like it. I want to know your personal opinion on it. Is it that we should make exceptions, or do you like the rule in that we are allowing people that there could be a perception of conflict of interest, and we should just trust that they don't act on that conflict of interest? Personally, I don't love it. I would love to know that there are individual people. There are people outside of.
I think he's making reference to the fact that the leaders of our JFF are all associated with a parish.
How do you feel about
football
that?
Well, I'll tell you how we're going to change that now, because at the Congress on the 20th, we are actually changing the Constitution to widen the voting. So it's not just the 12 parishes voting anymore, 13 parishes. It is going to be stakeholders from all over, clubs, different sporting associations, right, referees association. That is what's going to be in the voting next year. And the board is going to be selected from that wide group. Right? So that is being changed. Right? So JFF has heard the cries of the people, and that is being changed, right? For next year when the Congress votes. The reason why it can't be for this year is because there has to be a 1-year notice for the change to take place in the Constitution. Right? But that, I don't know if you got a copy of the General Secretary's report that I sent out that shows it.
No,
right?
We didn't have access to that copy. But we'd love
We sent it right out to the media, so I can send it to you. It's not a problem. But it shows the new constitution that's being proposed and all the voting. It shows our financial statements that's last audited and what's going to Congress for approval. It gives a report on the board. So we're very transparent with everything, and that's how we want to be, right? The other thing to consider, is that the truth is that a lot of people will say, boy, and I see it in government service too. People say, criticize that. When you say to them, boy, will you come and serve on a committee for 2 hours a month? You know what the cries? I don't have the time. Right? And therefore, when the whole thing came up of NSWMA, for example, and William Mahfood and Butch Hendricks, and 2 great Jamaicans who give a lot to this country. When Portia Simpson Miller asked me to do it, and I said, boy, William, I think I should. You know what William Mahfood said to me? Right? He said to me, Dennis, if everybody criticizes and don't want to do something, who is going to do it? Who's going to save the country? Right? And that is a problem, when you don't understand. When we, as the best way, or I should say it this way, the best way for bad things to happen is for good people to do nothing.
Yeah.
And that's very important. So therefore, a lot of people, you will say, boy, criticize things and how things run on JFF. But it's when you ask them, boy, you can give us some time to sit on a committee, the answer is, I don't have the time. Right? So then what you find is that you keep going back to the same persons
Right.
because they don't have the time for it. Right? But they're the first ones to criticize, you know.
Yeah. Real quick, I know that we're running out of time, but we still have a few more things to touch on. So bear with us.
Yeah, man.
Mr. The appointment of the new coach, it's an appointment that has sent shockwave through the Jamaican football fraternity, and this is one of the few decisions made by the GF that I think there's a consensus positive
Yeah.
feedback on. Can you please tell me about your role in the appointment of Coach Hal Crimson and the direction?
I was on the board that voted for him. That's all.
That's it.
So that predated your appointment as Gen Sec?
Yeah, it predated my appointment as GenSec.
All right. Let's get into some more controversial topics. Leon Bailey recently
Yeah.
did Let's Be Honest podcast in which he made a few remarks that we can tell that you're not happy about. Let's speak about
Right.
them. He mentioned that there are some figures in the JFF to this day, that gave him a fight, in quotations. I wanted to respond to that. I know that it probably would have predated you, but how do you
Yeah,
feel about
well, it never really predated me, because remember, I was involved in Phoenix from early,
There we go.
right? But I would answer it this way. I listened to, I was speaking with Ryan LFC, Ryan LFC,
Come on, I will
right? Yeah, and Ryan actually played a tape for me where after the whole thing, Oral Tracy called Craig, and Craig said, well, the JFF never really blocked Leon from at the embassies. He said what was happening is that there was a narrative out there that because of what was happening in between Africa and Europe, that he was exploiting the young boys and carrying them to Europe. And he says he thinks that there might have been a notification coming from FIFA to be on the lookout for those things because of what was happening with people carrying youngsters from Africa. And then they'll carry 10 of them, one of them do well, and they leave the 9 of them on the street. Right? And he said that's what happened. It had nothing to do with the JFF. The JFF did not block anyone. Right? And think about it this way. The JFF would not have the ability to block anyone at the embassy. Not even the ambassador can talk to the person who is issuing a visa.
Yeah.
That is the Chinese wall that exists, right? And as I said, at the time, Leon said he was talking about it from he was 9 years old. At 9 years old, he's not going to know that. Somebody must say that to him, right? But as Craig had said when he spoke with Oral Tracy, it wasn't really the JFF blocking anybody, right? No, because of, I think what could have happened is because of all of that narrative coming out of Europe. And remember, the American and US and Europe embassy, all of them are linked, right? So what happens in one country, they know what happens elsewhere, right? So at the time also, Craig was having a problem with CASAFA. So you think about all of those things. The embassy people are not people who don't know what's happening in society, They know about arguments that are out there.
Yeah.
Right? So maybe they made that decision, but we don't have the potential. Can you imagine if you said JFF had that power? You can imagine how much power that is JFF would have to block somebody at an embassy?
Right. But is it, I wanted to look at this perspective. Is it that figures in the head of the JFF, they would be the ones leading the narrative that he's partaking in this child labor or whatever?
Could that be
No, not that I know of. It was actually something coming out of Europe, I recall.
All
right? But I don't know anyone who was leading that narrative. I know that Craig had some issues with some persons individually, and in particular, CASAFA and not the JFF. right? I know that there were some issues with Kasafa, right? But I don't know of the JFF per se and the JFF doing something like that. And as I always say, you know, I remember the director of public prosecutions actually wrote something once, and she said, when people issue statements, she was writing about a contractor general report, they need to be careful about it because um, when a man's reputation is damaged, you can't just go and pick it up.
I was right on the cusp of asking you. There's something that I've long maintained since the inception of this channel. I've always said Leon Bailey not playing for the Reggae Boys until 22 years old is the biggest travesty in JFF history. And trust me, there have been a lot of things that have gone left. But I think that one is one of the most, incredible occurrences. Do you have any insight as to why that could have possibly been the case? Because it's absolutely egregious.
I know exactly why it happened. I don't want to comment on it, but what I can say is that what I can say is that it was not the fault of the JFF. But I know exactly why it happened. I was in the middle of it.
Okay. Oh, that's as far as Mr. Chung can tell us.
All right. Another question on Leon Bailey. You were around Phoenix at the time. Can you speak to the quote-unquote fight that Craig Butler and Leon Bailey speak about? Were they, in fact, receiving a fight from, Kasafa and the JFF?
I know that there was a difference that was happening. There was some amount of disbarment and fallout. As to where the fault lies, you could interpret it in different ways. You know what I mean? So the reason why two people argue is because everybody think they're right?
Yeah.
And that's why two people argue. And some of the times, all it requires is for two people to sit down and say, hey, I see your perspective. You see what I'm saying, though? Right? And that's what it requires sometimes. And I personally think that is what was happening, right? It's just that, it's like the Iran-Iraq war, the 7-year war. They started out fighting over a piece of land. And they got to a point where the land was destroyed and they forgot why they were fighting. They were just fighting. So I think that there was a possibility on both sides for it to be dealt with. But then, as I always say, the biggest downfall that man has, and when I say man, I mean males, is that they have an ego.
Yeah.
If women were running the world, we wouldn't have the war in Ukraine and Russia right now. I can't tell you that.
So do you think there's any reconciliation for Craig Butler and the Phoenix organization and the Jamaica Football Federation, or do you think bridges are complete?
Well, listen, Leon Bailey is probably the face of Phoenix, and he plays for Jamaica, and he's a very valued person for the team. And when the issue happened the other day, I took the deliberate decision that even though I know Leon, I wouldn't call him because I didn't want any perception to begin that I was interfering in the process. But when the team issued, the team manager issued the report, I called him after. I barely talk, and I think it was just a misunderstanding. There was nothing big. I think the press blew it up bigger than what it was. But Leon is Phoenix, and Leon is embraced by JFF. Leon is a very valuable part. So if that is the case, there's no discrimination. There's no inability for reconciliation. There's always the ability for reconciliation. It's just for people to sit down and understand each other. Because sometimes the reason why we disagree is because we're even so caught up in our own thoughts that we don't take the time to listen to somebody. So I think Leon is very valuable. And this guy named Dujan, Whisper, right, which people talk about. And I must tell you, right, I spoke with 2 international coaches, right, and they didn't even they didn't even, I didn't raise it, but they said to me, boy, they're watching the game, and they said to me, well, one of them, he was talking to another one. He said to me, I said to him, boy, this is probably wicked, because I said Dujan, and let me tell you, for me as a JC man, said this KC man good, you must know him good. I think him good, right? Because for JC men, we don't really cater to people that don't go JC, right? But when I said it to him, you know what he said to me? He said I wouldn't pick Dujan on my side, Whisper on my side, right? So I said to him, why? He says he's a very good player, ability, but he doesn't work hard enough, right? So sometimes we look at things, and when the experts look at it, they look at it differently, because I think the man is awesome, because I see the man take the ball and score some goal. But he said, listen, he doesn't work hard enough. He needs to develop some more, because he's 17. Right, he said he needs to develop some more before I put him in a team. And as I said to somebody, it's not hard to conceive, because would you pick a team with 11 messes on it?
No, that team could not be
Makes no
successful.
sense.
Exactly. So therefore, when coaches look at their team, right, they look at the team itself,
Right.
Not just the individual player. So my thing is always, if I am not an expert in something, I leave it to the experts. And the other thing is this, right? As I said, I would never tell my coach who to pick, because if I do that, then he is no longer accountable for what happens.
Yeah.
Right? I believe, however, that your show and the fans should express their opinion, right? Because that is the fun in football. The fun in football is that I support JC and you support KC, or whatever school. We said the daycare center I went to Arden, right?
Yeah, we can't allow the Arden disrespect.
The Arden standard. I mean, I think Arden is the biggest school on that stretch of road. But some might.
You see, so you see, we have different opinions, and that's what makes football fun. Yeah. Where I have a problem is when people start getting disrespectful about it, and acting like they are the epitome of all knowledge. No, right? People play differently. I mean, my team in the World Cup is Brazil. Another man of Argentina, another man of Germany. The poor Germans, right? I mean, things look dark for them now, right? But that is what makes it fun, and therefore we have to have the discussion. We have to have the debate. I love it. I love when people say, boy, Whisper is good, and another man say I'm not good, or another man says something about somebody else. I'm a Ronaldo fan, but when the disrespect start coming in is when I have the problem. So let's argue, let's disagree, but don't say that it's corruption because somebody don't pick somebody, because at the end of the day, a man's job is on the line, and he's going to do what he thinks is the best thing. If every coach, look at it this way, if every coach had the same view doing something, would anybody be better than anybody else? No. Everybody would be the same thing.
In that regard, though I know you're not a part of the technical committee, nor are you a part of the technical staff, is that young kid on the JFF's radar, though? Because we all believe that
I don't know. I would expect that he would be, right? But I don't know. I mean, that is that's a prerogative totally of the coaching staff.
All right.
Right. The only thing that we are concerned when it comes to players is that there's nothing unethical that they're involved in, right? Nothing illegal, none of that. That is the only thing. So, for example, two of the things that I'm doing, I'm actually looking at 4 policies to be put in place. And one of them, FIFA is asking us to deliver before the end of the year, which is a procurement policy to ensure that there's equity and value for money in procurement. But 2 policies I'm looking at for early next year, which I've sent to the board and they're looking at now, is a whistleblowing policy to ensure that everybody can report anything they see wrong, right? Um, some of the board members have come back already and said, boy, listen, we're fine with this. And also a sexual harassment policy. Why a sexual harassment policy? Because we are asking children to play for us.
Yeah.
And we must ensure that parents feel safe sending their children to play on teams that the JFF sanction, right? And I will be the first one that if anyone runs afoul of the law, I will be the first one to go to the police station and say, listen, come deal with this thing, right?
Which is right.
Yeah.
Policy. Yeah, I mean, you spoke about policies, and that segues perfectly into the final segment of this interview. Policies for the JFF going forward, and like what are your plans and expectations for the JFF going forward? So
Um,
a few policies. What are some like overarching things that you'd like to implement that you think will alter the direction of JFF? And where do
but good internally, good governance, right? Um, Definitely good structures. You know, I want to ensure that the JFF is a place where people want to come and work and feel comfortable working. Because for me, that's important. And already I'm getting a lot of calls from people who want to come and work at the JFF, and people want to sit on committees, right? So from the internal point of view, I want to structure it that way so that there's transparency and good governance. Externally, two other things that we're focused on, which is what FIFA is focused on for next year or so, is talent development throughout the country, right? Identifying talent. So the president spoke to the fact that he wants to use football as a catalyst for social change and social impact, and also women's development of football, right? Of course, some of the things that I'm looking at also, I'm also looking at and discussing with the president for all our players, putting in place a support for academics, right? So that can we find a way, for example, of when teams come to play for the JFF, of putting tutors in place to support their academic learning, right? That's very important. So so to create an environment from my perspective where we can develop talent and have more talent for JFF, right? And then to ensure that we have accountability with the coaching staff and ensure that we have the best coaching staff that's out there, right? So that really is in a nutshell what we want to do. We have something exciting we're planning for next year, June. Can't say what it is yet, but when that hit, that's going to be a major thing.
Right.
Will I be able to buy a number 17? Will Rush be able to buy a number 17 Adidas Reggae Boy shirt? Will I be able to buy my number 20 or my number 7? Although I think
Yeah, man.
both you should be getting some for free. But so we have to buy, right? Will we be able to purchase it and like get player branded merchandise and so on and so forth?
Yeah, man, we're looking at all of that because obviously there are some legal issues with those things we have to sort out too. But we're looking at all of those things. But unbranded, we know definitely you'll be able to buy those. So how we brand them and sell them, we definitely have to look at those issues. But definitely we're going that way.
All right.
Wait, one more thing. Some details on the contract signed with Adidas with our new jersey. Can you just give us like a quick overview of that, how that came into being? That's a big company, a big sponsorship.
Yeah, well, basically it was the person who actually pursued it and got it done was the same man you say have a conflict of interest, Speid. So Speid was the one who actually did it. He negotiated it and everything with the president. What it is that for all Jamaican branded things, we get 20% of sales, right? We also we get gears, outfits, all of those things. We get the ability to sell them also. In terms of the final contract, we don't have that yet because it will be signed in January, and Adidas thought that we just do an MOU right now, right? Officially, those are the terms that we agree. But because we're still under contract with Umbro, we don't really have the detailed contract yet.
There we go. We can tell that Adidas is excited, for the Jamaican partnership because we saw the Arsenal partnership on the.
Yeah, man. Listen. Anything that is branded Jamaica, we don't realize in Jamaica how powerful our brand is, It's a very powerful brand, and we mess with it. We don't take care of it. We treat it like it's a second-rate thing. It was a huge brand.
Yeah, man. Yeah, man. And I've always said, pound for pound, Jamaica is up there with with the greatest nations in the world. How small we are and the impact of it. So I definitely agree with you.
Yeah, man. Definitely. And we're gonna make sure that we take advantage of it.
How much longer do we have Dennis Chung at the helm of the JFF? Is that something that you plan to do until you get old and die, or do you have like a set time frame that you want to come shake?
No. I don't know yet. I mean, maybe initially 2 years, and then we'll see what happens from there. Yeah, I know when I went to NSWMA, I went there for 3 years. I know my term, the third term, which I'm approaching 8 years, and 1 year after that, and at a recent handing over the trucks, the minister was saying, boy, we might have to hold on to. I'm saying, no, minister, 12 years.
All right, so let's give the people some entertainment. We bring a human element to all of the guests that we have on this. Just play a quick fire game. We'll ask you some question, this or that, and you have to answer first thing that comes to your mind.
Yeah.
Let's
start.
Get to the nitty-gritty.
All right, let's start with on the Jamaican side. Favorite reggae boy? Who's your favorite reggae boy? Off the top.
Player Ravel Morrison.
Currently.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. The current player Ravel Morrison.
All-time Ravel as well.
What's that? All time?
Yeah.
No, all time for me, Walter Boyd.
What is that your GOAT? Is that your greatest reggae boy of all time, or just your personal favorite?
Just my personal favorite. I mean, I just loved Walter Boyd play.
All right. Favorite thing to eat? What's Dennis Chung's go-to meal?
No, it's not an animal tonight.
It's not might be chicken.
Yeah, I would say vegetables and fruits.
You sure you not just say that for maintain a certain kind of image?
No, actually love them.
All right. Your favorite place in Jamaica?
Negril.
How many countries have Mr. Dennis Chung traveled to in his lifetime?
Whole heap.
All right.
I'm looking at my refrigerator and I see a whole lot of magnets on them. I always buy a magnet from every country, so there's a lot of them.
All right.
A lot of them.
Your favorite reggae girl?
That one I'd have to give some thought. Favorite reggae girl. My favorite girl in terms of seeing her play when he was coaching the side was this girl named Asha.
Yeah, Asha.
Apparently that's Rush's favorite reggae girl as well.
Yeah, man. She was an awesome midfielder.
All right. We know everybody have an EPL team. Who's your EPL side?
Man U.
Oh my God. Right. You were going so well, Mr. Chung.
My God, you have to drop one.
Yeah. Out of all of the teams in the Premier League, you have to pick
the worst team.
The JC man after us. Go.
You see the problem, the difference with me and you, is that I'm not a wagonist. I stick with what I had from long time.
No, we are both Arsenal fans.
It's impossible to be wagonist at 24.
I was born and bred an Arsenal. Right after the Invincible season would have went. I was born in 1998 when the Invincible was 04, and I've been an Arsenal.
Yeah, man, I'm Man U from the days of Georgia Best.
Here we go.
Well, you already said Ronaldo, unfortunately. So the World Cup or the Champions League? As a player, which would you prefer to win?
World Cup.
The World Cup. You have no more of you?
All right. Jamaica win the World Cup
or
Man U win the Champions League. I know as a player, but you right now in your position, which one would you rather see? Easy, but give him a chance.
Jamaica win the World Cup.
Here we go. Too easy.
Jamaica win the World Cup and Man U not playing league football.
Jamaica win the World Cup.
All right, we know Jamaica All the time. All right, that's it. Thank you for passing through. One thing we realize that you're doing is you're doing the media rounds. You know, you're giving, the people on YouTube and the untraditional media, as they would say, you're giving them some love, and we don't want to know why. Why is that so? Why are you, giving them so much?
Because let me tell you something. 70% of people who get their news get it from non-traditional media.
Right now, yep.
If you ignore those 70%, you have a problem.
Yeah.
Right? And I will give. I don't run from media. Whether even if it's something bad, I won't face it. Right? Because I know I don't have nothing to hide. So I don't have nothing to run from.
Here we go.
All right. Well, Mr. Chung, thanks again for passing through, for making the time with us. We hope that you're no stranger to the channel. We hope we can get you back. I'm not saying every single week, but I definitely hope that you can from time to time.
Give us the exclusive of what's going to happen next June.
Yeah, and just have you and speak about new policies and so on and so forth.
But it depends on when you call. If you call me when it's okay for release it, then fine.
All right.
Because the JFF is a dynamic organization, so things are always changing. They're always moving. So I know me and Rush and the people would definitely love to see your face again. But thanks again, because I know that time is money and you don't have a lot of it because you're a busy man. So thanks again. I really appreciate it.
There we go.
Right, no problem.
Mr.
All right, thanks a lot.
Yeah, man. Big up.
Yeah.
There we go, bro. Awesome one.
Yeah. There's a lot of stuff that we cleared up, there's a lot of stuff that we wanted to know, there's a lot of stuff that the people needed to know. And we knew that Mr. Chung was a transparent man, and we definitely liked what he stood for, being the new General Secretary of the JFF, and we got some insight, some long desired insight that we really, really, really wanted to get, and I'm so happy that he could have just spared us some time. Big up to Ryan LFC, he was the one who inspired us first and foremost, to say, nobody's out of grasp, nobody's out of reach, as journalists, we aspire to get to anybody that we will need to get. We've tried and we've failed, and this is just another one that we've succeeded, and hopefully we develop a relationship with Mr. Chung. We've spoken to Mr. Speid, hopefully get back Mr. Speid on the channel. Hopefully this can be our gateway into the JFF to speak to the likes of the president, speak to the likes of the head coach, technical director.
Yeah, man.
We'd love to speak to Craig Butler again. There's a lot of people that we want to talk to, and this is just one more step in the journey of This or That Sports TV.
Yeah, man, and the goal is just to get everyone's perspective. Whenever somebody, have some note, have something to say, we want them to come and say it on This or That Sports TV. So when Mr. Butler wants to say something about the JFF, he can say it on This or That Sports TV. When the JFF wants to reply to Mr. Butler, come and say it on This or That Sports TV. We're not pushing any one narrative. We're not taking anyone's side. We're just here to present the facts to you and allow the public to make their opinion of what it is. So people, thank you for watching this one. You want, so leave them now?
Yeah.
All right, people, if you like the video, don't forget to like the video. Leave a comment under this one and subscribe to This or That Sports TV. Hit the white button
and share the video to at least. So weird, the white button. YouTube, they shouldn't.
Yeah, that never ring. The red button.
The red button. That's like for decades.
Yeah.
Anyways, share the video to at least 10 people, but ensure to get us 6 subscribers. Because if each and every one of you guys can do that, then we can get Mr. Chung on the channel again.
There we go. People, check out This or That Sports TV's Manning Cup Award. Big show. It's doing well so far. The people like it, bro. Them like the vibe.
They disagree with us in some awards.
But we expected it. Lot of good players, lot of good goals, lot of good coaches. So,
the disagreement, have you changed your mind?
No, not at all.
You believe in the awards.
And I believe in the awards that we gave. And even the one, there's one that I'm reconsidering, but it's not even because the people say anything. I said it here before we even premiered the video. I let the consideration. But people, nice award. We have more things like that coming, show, more interviews like this. A lot of things coming from us. JPL content, track and field content. Look out for all of that. But, we do the pleasantries already, so big up on yourself. You know that go. Out.